I'm a DJ boy, going to Dcentral, minting NFT, farming DeFi, being crypto poor but JPay rich.
What we'll do is we'll save room for questions at the end, about 5 minutes. So kind of hold your burning questions. We'll try to get to them, and we'll have a stimulating panel with this incredible group of Web3 marketing gurus. So I'll let each of you guys introduce yourself and say what you're doing in the Web3 marketing space, maybe some of your specialties, differentiating factors for your companies.
Sure. Hey, everyone. Glad to be here. My name's Zach. I'm the CEO and founder of GenzioCo. We're a Web3 marketing agency specializing in development, influencer, Twitter marketing, and Discord management, so community management.
Awesome. My name is Gopman. I'm the head of marketing business development for a company called ANKR. We do infrastructure to help blockchains run faster and better. I've been in the space for 5 years. I also built a company called Akash, which is another infrastructure company on the Cosmos network. I specialize in crafting narratives that communicate well to the Web3 community and like products that they want to see, and continuing that process with content that relays on all different channels.
That was very well spoken. I'm not Jason Fishman. I'm his co-founder, but he wasn't able to make it today. So I'm Tim Martinez, co-founder of Digital Niche Agency.
I just thought you shaved.
He's much better looking than me. I send him to these events. We specialize in investor and user acquisition, heavily focused on paid media. We are a full-service advertising agency located out of Los Angeles. We have a staff of about 25. We've generally focused on raising capital. That has been our sweet spot, but we do many other things beyond just raising capital for early stage companies. We're going to get into all that, so I'll stop my pitch there.
My name's Itai. I'm one of the partners at Market Across. We are a Tel Aviv-based PR and content marketing agency. I used to work for Wix, which is a pretty big startup, so I come from Web2. Yeah, we have some pretty cool big clients, and I'm sure we'll elaborate about cool stuff later.
Yeah, and one thing I'm thinking about is hearing what you guys all do is we should talk about like local versus national versus global marketing as part of the conversation, because I think there's some interesting nuances there. But for starters, let's differentiate Web 2 versus Web 3 marketing, and what are the major differences in terms of even the language and the approach to it. And Zach, based on what your company does, what's influencer marketing look like in Web 3 versus Web 2?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And so we do kind of more mainstream marketing. So, for example, one of our last clients was Skittles. We actually worked with them on a best of Twitter marketing competition that Twitter hosts every year. Brands compete in that and to see who can basically get the most engagement. And the reason I mention that is because Skittles isn't necessarily Web 2, but it's a more traditional company. And I would say one of the main differences here, and this isn't necessarily something I'm saying negative about Web 2, is traditionally you buy a product, you take it home, you use it, and then you're done. If a Web 3 product is really good, whether that's an NFT, a blockchain, a token, you're going to own that forever, essentially. So the community management of the people who own your different products is really important, because essentially they're a part of your community forever if your project is successful. That's much different than buying a MacBook or something and then you use it to a certain point and then throw it away. So the marketing nuances there are really important.
Guys, any other distinctions between Web 2 and Web 3?
Yeah, I would say Web 2 is more about the product and about the users of the product, and Web 3 is more about the belief in the product, where the majority of your people are investors, and so they might not even be whether they're an investor technically or not, they're someone who's believing in you and putting some money behind it, and so they want to have a shared narrative and belief in the community and feel like things are right, and so that matters almost as much as the product itself. And the Web3 products right now, you see very little actual daily active users, but you have a ton of people you need to engage and bring into your community. So it's more about that shared feeling and community and brand of it.
Yeah, the stakeholders kind of converge together, like the technology, right? Yep. And with that comes greater responsibility to manage those stakeholders and sort of bring them into the narrative.
Yeah, it's a big topic. I mean, I think marketing is marketing in general, and good fundamental sound practices of marketing, of finding a good value proposition. Why does that person care? Like, if you don't care, it doesn't matter if it's Web 2 or Web 3. It's my job as a marketer to find the aha moment and to help you care, and then to lead you down a path and a journey. So whether it's Web 2 or Web 3, I see it as a little irrelevant. It's, can I get an individual to care about my project and bring them where I need to bring them and get them to take the actions in a certain sequence? That's how I view it.
So I think they kind of all said it, but I'll kind of maybe do a small iteration. I think that, first of all, most Web2 businesses have at least one clear CTA, call to action, on their website. And when you do a campaign, you have a CTA. A lot of crypto projects or Web3, whatever, join my Discord. Now, join my Discord isn't exactly a very elaborate CTA where you get a lot out of. So I agree that most Web2 companies, what they want is for you to come, sign up for a year, prepaid, and you know what? Maybe share it with a friend. And then they're happy. Now, Web3 is more like join the cult. And there's good things and bad things about that. But I think that the biggest difference, and that's maybe something that, just all the stuff you guys already talked about, but most Web3 projects have a floor price or a token price from day one, and that is very, very stressful. So, and that's also very connected to the community. So I'm pretty sure that the users of Salesforce aren't really affected by the price of the stock of Salesforce, and they wouldn't hate the company or love it if the price goes up and down. And also, it took years for Salesforce to have a stock that's listed. So that's a very, very big thing that, everyone talks about community. Community is usually as good as your floor price. So there's a lot of kind of managing that part of it, which is what's real, what's not, how do I deal with this 24-hour price thing? So there's a lot of, a lot of delicate things when dealing with that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of transparency and visibility around the sort of heartbeat of the organization at its early infancy when it's still sort of forming itself, right? And I guess that leads to my next question, and Tim, why don't you kick us off on this? You guys have done launches. DNA. I know DNA from being in LA. Anyone that's in LA knows what you guys do, but you also are about full life cycle marketing, like a lot of the guys on stage. And I'm really curious how you see what tactics and strategies you see as important to not just have a good launch, right? To actually create long-term sustainability. There's been so many projects that I've been a part of and that are quasi rug pulls or rug pulls where the floor drops really quickly. How do folks here prevent that from happening?
Yeah, so in the traditional, let's call it Web 2, in that space, especially when we're talking about raising capital or building businesses, let's just talk about kind of maybe entrepreneurship as a broad topic, broad stroke. If you care about what you're building, if you sincerely care about what you're building, you're adding a lot of value to the world and the community and to your fellow man and hoping to make the world a better place. Why does that need to die the second your campaign is over, right? You're the founder, and this is your founding team, and everybody like blood, sweat, tear, 15 hours a day, not just living it and owning it. Your community is going to feel that. So if your campaign wraps and you're like, all right, guys, that was it. Thank you so much.
Marketing is an all-time, always thing. It's not a sometime
thing. It's an
thing.
always thing.
And that's a very big gap when we see people or brands, especially
So they do a project plan and it ends at the launch. And then they're like, now what?
I'll give you an example. So we do a lot of PR, and then we have a lot of super legitimate companies, whatever, who come to us every few months and say, all right, now we have something to do a PR about. Someone should care about it. And I say, well, it's very hard, first of all, to maintain cadence like that, and every 6 months to come with a journalist with something. You also need to show that there's, that you're doing things. You're not every pitch is going to work, but you need to have a pitch a month so they know that you're active. And coming and saying, all right, we're going to go in this building period right now because we're devs, and we're just going to close the blinds for 6 months, might mean a lot for the business sense that you think, but marketing-wise, it kills a machine that's very hard to sometimes just re-jumpstart where it started.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to that too, and I think this is where community management is really important. If you think of marketing and community management in Web3, you can't really have marketing without community management. So it's almost vital to the business. And I also think that Web3 users are more skeptical of traditional advertising. So Web3 users they see themselves as the leaders of a new generation for privacy and all of these things that we believe in with blockchain. So if they see a company that has this kind of messaging promoting itself on a Google ad, they may not be as receptive because they are looking for more community-based marketing. So they look for influencers or other folks that they get education from versus more traditional means. And I think that makes it more sustainable.
Well, let's hear from Greg. If you all don't know ANKR, they have 165,000 community members on Twitter and many more, I'm sure, beyond that off Twitter. And, you guys have built a sustainable community. I'm curious sort of how you did it and what are some of the pivots that you along the way. What did you learn in the process of building such a large community?
Yeah, I think we had a lot of support. And so ANKR's really lucky to be one of these middleware companies that works with a lot of the major brands in the space. So we're partners with Polygon, Binance, Avalanche, Phantom, all the big L1s and L2s. Those are our main clients. And then we also work with top dApps and provide them infrastructure too. So we've been really lucky, as those partnerships have come along to be able to engage with those communities and bring them into our fold. It sounds kind of cheesy, but like early on, like it's nice to do like the contests and like the things to get people excited. I mean,
contests work,
and people are really excited when you have we started off ANKR wasn't a high token price, product, and so people notice when the token starts moving, and they want to join that army. Everyone wanted the Link Marines were like a great kind of like case study on like how to like moon your token in a way. And so I think like there's a nice crescendo as these brands are building, and ANKR's lucky to be in in stage of the process. We still believe we're on track to be a top 30 company. We're not there right now, but there's a nice crescendo of like building your community and how people come on board and like when they join in your journey and what they believe they're joining for and what they believe where you're going. And so I think we've done a nice job of crafting that story early on, and now we're at a new point in our evolution where we're crafting a new story, which we're excited about. We'll be launching, but I think 3 weeks with Itai, might I say. And so, I think it's just nice to have a lot of fun, exciting things on the horizon for your community members to latch onto. And if one narrative's ending, you have to have a new narrative beginning.
Were there any course corrections that you guys made along the way?
So ANKR's experimented with a lot of different products. And so we've I'd say around 50% of them have been misses, right? So we've experimented a lot. We did
that's a really good win rate in this industry.
Yeah, we build real products, you know what I mean? But we've also done crowd loans on parachain crowd loans, which really didn't hit. We were the first thing to introduce liquid staking on Ethereum, but we didn't have enough marketing support, so Lido beat us on that. I think we're number 2 or 3 for liquid staking. I think 3 now. On them, but we've brought liquid staking to 7 other chains. We do innovate in the space, which is a really cool thing for ANKR, and I think people really appreciate that.
If I can say one thing, and again, it does talk a lot about ANKR, but I think in general, companies like ANKR understand that it's not about narratives are important, but it's about doing things. So if that's one tip I can tell people, and is that unfortunately marketers like us have been helping projects for the past 5-6 years, and the promises of how this X business will revolutionize Y industry has been covered 30,000 times, and the problem is that 29,999 of these companies didn't deliver. So I think that the most important thing right now is to deliver. It doesn't have to be the hugest thing in the world, but there's such a big difference between saying we did something, and that's why it's important, and say what we want to do. And potential and is overhyped in this industry, and doing 10-yard moves, but really showing what that moves all the time, that I think is a very influential thing to do.
Yeah, and in traditional finance, you have something called investor relations, where you have to communicate with your investors, but yet in the world of marketing, B2B, B2C, we just don't do that. Why?
Yeah, I just interviewed one of the co-founders of GenoPads, Jay, and every 2 weeks they put out what they've been working on and where it's at. I mean,
but I also want to touch on that. So I have clients where I'm like, hey guys, you've been really quiet for the past 4 months. And no, go to our Twitter. Here's our update. Or go to our Telegram. That's important. That's not the same thing as going out there and doing things and doing whatever. So I think it's all important. But going to say, we're talking to our community. Look, here's our weekly update. It's important to stay alive that way, but that only talks to your community members. It doesn't signal to the outside world, look at these things, you should take a look at it. So unfortunately, I don't think that any brand that wants to succeed can just do one of what we're doing here. You need to do earned, you need to do owned, you need to do paid, you need to do everything.
one interesting thing I will say is ANKR built a lot of their things in the bear market, the last bear market, and then as the bull market came about, we were really appreciated for having a company that had products. But then when the bull market was there, all these companies come with products that they don't deliver, but they still go up, which is kind of interesting too. It's like as long as you have the right thing when that market comes, that seems to be one of the biggest factors, just being ready.
I'll just add one comment. My co-founder and I, we produced NFT LA, and we got a lot of feedback. People had a good experience, but the biggest compliment is, oh my God, you guys said you were going to do it, and you actually did it. And like we got hugs just for that. Like I think that shows just where people are at with how many times there's been betrayal in this industry where people just want to know they can count on your words.
I wanted to add in because you made a really good point. I actually, before I founded Genzio, I worked at OKX and I was on the listing team there. And so we were, I was on the listing team when all of these tokens, like these L1s and things were kind of getting started. And so they're all asking us to get listed. And it was kind of our job to figure out like, hey, which of these are actually real and which of them should we actually list? Because a year and a half or 2 years ago is actually much, Coinbase and these different companies were much more selective about what they were listing. And it's like, to your point, they looked at like what they were actually building. And that's the more you build and kind of are actually putting things out, like the exchanges will see that, the community, it like rewards it.
The biggest project in this bull market, I don't know if we're bull or bear or whatever, I'm not smart enough to understand that, but in the past bull market, the biggest project that did the biggest success were projects that launched in the bear market. So Polygon, Matic, again, full disclosure, been working with them for a long time. Look at that. Look at FTX. They were another 3-letter exchange. And by the way, we did their launch and I didn't do that good of a job because it was another exchange in the bear market.
OpenSea has been around for 4 years.
Yeah,
right?
Solana was another layer one a lot before it was Solana. So like this is a really good time to launch stuff if you did fundraise enough to have a bandwidth and you really want to build.
I remember SBF trying to raise $2 million of token 2049 for Alameda in the very first seed round, and we were all like, why would anyone invest in another exchange right now?
Yeah, derivatives, sure, that's what we need.
All right, guys. Well, I want to save some room for questions from the audience, but I have 2 more questions. One, let's talk about the common pitfalls and mistakes in Web3 marketing and try to hit on some things that we haven't talked about yet. Like what are some of those, oh no, you did that, and then you guys have to rewind it, that we can sort of help these folks avoid?
Yeah, so I mean, I'd like to just give an example. If everyone remembers when like Kim Kardashian promoted Ethereum Max, and it just like tanked, like that was the most, as like a marketing person, I was like, oh man, this is like horrible. Like she's probably gonna get sued. And anyone in the crypto community who saw that, it just came off as so inauthentic. Another example is like Randy Zuckerberg's like her music video. I don't know if anyone's seen that, but it definitely cringy, right? It's very clear that these people like don't actually care about Web3 and that they're just in it for, quick cash grab. And the Web3 community understands that. So being authentic and actually having community members who are building in the ecosystem be the marketers and promoting them to grow. And like having it make sense, like if you're going to have a gaming project, have an influencer, someone who already is doing gaming. Don't just throw a random name on there because they're famous. It's going to come off very badly.
I would say my best piece of advice is whether you're working with like a marketing agency or a new employee or one of these influencers, you just have to keep them on a very short leash in the early beginning and really hold them tight to coming through on their deliverables to know if there's someone who actually does things or someone who doesn't. Especially in the bull market, things get really frothy. Everyone wants a lot of money. You get stuck in these contracts. Sometimes they're long contracts, and you get stuck in contracts with people that don't do the work. And so just be really, really cautious and be really tight on your leash and micromanage the first month before you let people kind of run, because people will work for you for months and not do shit and you won't even know.
Pilots are really important, but also making sure that there's not like a bait and switch and that you have the right people in their team committed to you and that they're not taking on more than they can chew. A lot of marketing companies in Web3 I found have suddenly they're really good and then they have 30 clients and then the value is diluted for everyone.
Yeah, I would say never quit, never quit, never quit, never quit, never quit. Just never quit, seriously. If you have a project and you really...
What are you trying to tell me? I can't get it.
You really want to drive this point home. I mean, what happens is people stop too early. they stop spending too early, they get their feelings hurt that nobody wants to show up to their party, and they're like, this thing sucks, and no one wants to come, nobody's in my community, and just keep going. Just keep going. And if it's not this project, maybe it'll be another project, but just keep going. That's like, I think, the best piece of advice I could give to any founder or entrepreneur out there.
Yeah, I think I could say everything this year is correct. I would say that I would say more on the devs side, there's a very big disease of if I build it, they will come. And I think that there's so many really cool stuff being built. I had clients who built everything like that you're seeing. I know people have built Uniswap before Uniswap was there, but people didn't come. So the concept of a lot of devs are like, we did it, it's done, now to the next thing. Well, most big companies like MailChimp build MailChimp, and then they like market it for 15 years. So I really, really believe in like getting some main products out there. Of course, always innovating, but this can't be like sometimes I just built it, so to say I built it, put it on my Twitter, now next thing. So.
And you do some global marketing. Any specific thoughts there to add?
Well, I would differentiate between like grassroots community stuff or whatever. So let's put like Southeast Asia. There's a lot of great things there. But when it comes to like top of the funnel, I do think that usually these places do still till today kind of live off of signals from the West. So I would say that like on the kind of more upper style PR level or whatever. But when you go down to influencers, I do think that localization is important. But I also think that most Web3 audiences are pretty prolific in, I would say, English, at least in a lot of the world. So maybe Asia's a bit different, but I'm not a huge believer. So I think marketing is marketing, message is message, and I don't think that like this is a pretty connected world. So I wouldn't like really go down and do super duper different actions or tactics unless there's a specific demographic you want to really get grassroots. Like if you're a play turn game who wants growth in Vietnam, then yeah, taking us to do that specifically might not be the right thing. But taking just that agency that knows how to do Vietnam, whatever, they can't build the kind of, I would say, playbook. So a bit of everything.
Cool. Do we have any burning questions in the audience? Who has a question? All right, I have another question.
Just one more thing on global marketing. So there used to be communities that were different than the other communities. Like Japan operates completely differently. Korea operates completely differently. And so if you wanted to get exposure to those communities, you used to have to China as well, work with a local agency there. But all the
language barrier as well, huge language barrier.
Yeah, but all three of those communities are off the map these days, so it doesn't even matter. Like we wouldn't work with anyone in Korea because no one can get listed on Upbit anymore. China banned Bitcoin, and Japan I don't even know what the fuck's going on in Japan.
Japan was like, I feel like, first of all, the biggest place where Bitcoin started, and then ICO boom was very big, and then at some point they just really closed the door.
They were like, crypto's bad.
Yeah,
and we all don't believe in it.
I literally think that I haven't seen a project out of Japan in years. Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, wow, that was bye, dude. I'm out of here.
He didn't like our answer.
That's all
he was like,
bullshit.
That's how you insult my people.
I'm out. I love Japan. Go to Kyoto. You can bike and no one ever steals it. So
that's the weirdest travel recommendation ever.
It's awesome to
Take
go to
a bike. No one will steal it.
Go to a city where you could bike around and leave your bike and not have to worry about it being stolen. It was pretty awesome. So, anyways, quick fire question. Let's get straight to the question.
Yeah, so you mentioned like a lot of the problem with like NFT projects or whatnot are not having a product, right, and then promising a product. So for our company, Immersed, we actually have a utility product, and now we're jumping into the Web3 space. So how would you go about building a community for something that already has that utility?
Great question.
I mean,
first of all, nice plug for the product.
Yeah, great
example.
He kept it kind of subtle. It was. I heard this term yesterday. It was a soft shell.
In a weird way, I would argue you don't have a product yet in Web3 because I think Web3 products in their own way in NFT communities are the community themselves and like the promise of what that community stands for, what it's going to be. Like, you look at Goblin Town, like, what is that? You know? It's like, it's not art. It is art, everything's art, but like they have a community, right? And they have an extremely strong Ethereum community that they pulled in there of insiders and they brought in their other inside communities and it became this like thing. And now there's like this cool stuff behind it. And so I think when you're launching your NFT community and your brand and your product, like you really have to have that ethos of what we stand for. And you need to have like that rallying call to bring people in there early to your like spaces and your Twitter and your Discord or, however you guys want to run it.
Are you trying to bring your old sort of loyalists in there, or are you trying to focus on some new blood and get those folks
it's new blood, because you'll probably get like 10% of your old loyalists if you're a Web2 community. They just don't, a lot of them don't believe in Web3. Some of them don't understand it. They probably may not be active on Discord or whatever it is. They're using your product. It's a totally different industry, you know? And so like you definitely, I think they could be your brand builders and be your loyalists, which would be great. And you incentivize them with tokens or NFTs or however you want to do it to make them feel like they're getting paid. You know, but you have to like kind of like start from scratch of how you're going to build this new thing.
Itai?
I think another cool way is if you have like a good gaming Web2 project and you want to introduce crypto, so do something pretty untraditional and do it without telling everyone 10 times before it. One day just tell all the people on your user base or whatever, hey, that sword that you've been building or whatever, oh, you can click here right now and turn it into NFT on this or that chain or whatever. So I think that turning Web2 players into NFT people by product and not by announcements, tokens, airdrops, whitelists, or whatever, that's a really good place to start. And then, of course, you can do all of that. But like, there's a few games that they also want to do that because they want to be more compliant with Google and Apple or whatever. They're really looking at how can I introduce NFTs without doing any drops or whatever. And then after that, hopefully I'll be able to monetize on that later.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our clients are Web2 clients entering Web3, and what we tell them and what we're finding is like, don't even say it's an NFT. Like, you don't even have to say it. Like, just make a really cool video game and have that be the utility, and then people who are really into NFTs, they'll figure it out. But you don't even need to say it's an NFT on the website or anything. And we're finding a lot of success in companies that are using that technology without marketing that it's an NFT and actually being more successful than some that push the NFT. So
cool. We have time for one more really quick question. All right.
Okay. Hi. So for what I understand, you have been mentioning strategies more for startups. How do you see major brands jumping from traditional marketing to Web3?
I mean, my favorite collabo is Nike and Artifact, but that's kind of a buyout. But I just fucking love both those companies. I love Artifact.
So cool.
So cool. Adidas did a pretty cool, collabo also into the space where, they were like, we don't really know what we're doing, but we're a great brand, and you guys are like the top NFT people. What do you want to do? And they just went to G Money, right? You probably know the story better than I did. And it's like, cool, yeah, I can like drop something and figure out like an early way to like make a new thing with you guys. And people respected it because it was a big brand, but they utilized Web3 people and kind of gave the Web3 people the control with some access to their brand.
I think the themes in those two projects is culture, and like Sinkers is a great streetwear, like make sure that you have the right culture for Web3. I think doing a cultural like audit is not a bad idea before you jump in. And then a lot of brands approached us around NFTLA, and I think they asked the right question, which is how can I authentically integrate with the community in a way that is not perceived as us as an outsider? And I think that's a key theme. Guys, this has been really cool. I'd love to let everyone know how they can stay in touch with you, learn more about what you do in this space. If we can go down the line, starting with Itai, how do people find you on Web3?
On Web3, so you can find me on Telegram. It is Itai, that's my first name, and then E, which is the first letter of my last name. I'm also on this really old website called LinkedIn, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that's it. I think that's the best ways to reach me.
Yeah, same deal. On Telegram, I'm at the Inside Man. It's an acronym for Tim. My name is Tim. Find me on Telegram. Yeah. Or digitalnicheagency.com. You can find us.
Ayo. My Telegram and my Instagram are both really embarrassing. Crypto, CRYPTO, Gops, GOPS. My last name's Gopman, so Crypto Gops was a thing before. Still there.
You can find me, Zach Nelson, on Telegram. It's just my name, Zach Nelson. And then you can find us on Twitter at GenzioCo. And yeah, if you need Twitter marketing too, hit us up. So.
Cool. At Josh Kriger on Twitter. You can check out our podcast at edgeofnft.com or at edgeofnft. We've interviewed over 150 leaders in the space. We drop 2 shows a week with lots of fun contests and alpha. And you can learn more about NFTLA, which is going to be April of 2023 at NFTLA Live. Thank you all very much. Thank you, guys.